How are you breathing? I don't say that in a rhetorical, I really want you to think about how are you breathing in this moment? Besides in and out. I know I ask that every time I come here, and you think I'd be tired of asking it, you'd be tired of having me ask you how you're breathing. But what you need to know, what I encourage you to remember is that is the anchor point to being present in the moment. When you practice mindful, conscious breathing, it allows you to be present in the moment. And you know what happens in the moment? This is where life is waiting to bestow itself upon you in the gift that's right in front of you. Just a question. How many of you have taken an opportunity recently to look out here and see these incredible oak trees, these palm trees, the beauty of nature around you? And so often when we're not present in the moment, we forget to be present and open to what God, life, is presenting to us in the moment, saying, hey, here it is. This is it. This is why you came here, to experience this. Ooh, I sound like a Baptist this morning, don't I? So, how you doing with the hurricanes, flybys, and whatnot? It's been kind of an interesting couple of weeks, hasn't it? And we just missed another one. It's going up the East Coast. Unfortunately, it's going out far enough, I think, that it's not going to affect too many people. How many of you remember Hurricane Hermine from 2 or 3 years ago? It was coming up the coast, and it was coming right at us on the Gulf Coast, and it decided to make a left turn just south of here and go out into the Gulf, and it didn't do any harm to anybody. But here's a story, and it's a true story about how life is always presenting us opportunities to go deeper and learn more about the value and the appreciation of being present in the moment and the gift that is brought to us in every moment. Literally, the weekend prior to when Hurricane Hermine came up the coast, we had just landscaped our backyard. Literally, with sod, palm trees, ficus, all kinds of beautiful landscaping. And as you know, you probably know, after you plant sod, after you plant trees, it takes a little while for them to get rooted because they can blow over. So literally, 2 days after we planted all this beautiful landscape, we live right on the waterway in St. Pete. I went to bed the night before the storm was to pass, and I had this vision in my mind of my palm trees slowly floating down the waterway, followed by pieces of sod. And, of course, that did not happen, thank you, God. But what it did was it reminded me that all things in their own space and time need to have time to root and to take hold, and so the life force within them can continue to unfold. So I was very blessed by that experience. And to kind of magnify or expand on that idea, in the late 70s, early 80s, in the Mojave Desert in California, there was an experiment called the Biodome. If you recall that, it was this. You were there? Wow. Okay. Cool. Well, then you can relate with this. I know that the scientists they wanted to create an artificial environment in the middle of the desert to create an ecosystem that would support every form of life's living creatures. So they built this big glass dome. From what I've not been there, but I've read about it, and I understand that's what it is. And so they created the perfect growing environment for life force, for trees, for animals, for shrubbery, for flowers, for human beings, to grow in the middle of this barren, unwelcoming area. And so in the middle of all this artificial environment, they considered it the perfect growing environment. Everything was going swimmingly well. The trees were growing, the landscape was growing, the grass was growing, the animals were thriving. Even the people that lived there on time to time were enjoying it. They had perfect filtered sunlight, filtered air. Everything was perfect. Can you imagine your life that perfect? And then what happened was, when the trees in the Biodome got to a certain height, they would topple over. And nobody could figure out what was going on with this. Why were the trees not surviving when everything else around it was surviving? One of the scientists finally came up with the understanding, the solution. Oh, the one thing you know what they forgot to build into this natural environment of the biodome? Wind. The trees had nothing blowing against them that causes their roots to grow deeper. You understand, it is the wind, the contrast of nature, pushing against the trees that give them their strength. They grow down the roots. And that's the title of my talk. Grow deep, stand tall. Grow deep, stand tall. And if you think about it, have you ever heard a tree curse the wind for blowing against it? No. No, you go out on a strong windy day and you'll see the trees blowing. Well, what are they doing? They move with the wind, don't they? They don't resist it. And yet their roots continue to go deeper and deeper into the soil, that creative medium that allows them to continue growing. There's a great quote that I'll share with you by Carl Jung. He writes, "The greater the contrast, the greater the potential. Great energy only comes from a correspondingly great tension between opposites." Now, the operative word there is opposites and energy. Okay? Can you imagine anything in nature growing without contrast? Think of it this way. Contrast without resistance is the practice of moving proactively with energy. Everything boils down to energy. Can I get a witness for that? We know that, right? Einstein gave us the theorem, E equals mc squared. Everything comes from pure energy, manifests as form, and then breaks back down into the energy from which it came. Energy must move, and a great tension between opposites is not stagnant. The tension between opposites. Have you ever seen a suspension bridge? What's going on with the bridge? It's not stiff like this, is it? It moves with the wind. You can even go up on the Skyway Bridge and watch it. It does a little bit of this, you know. So the idea that energy must move is a fact, and that great tension between opposites is not stagnant, it's fluid. So it's the greatest, I guess I love metaphors, and the metaphor is this. The greatest storms we have in our lives, personal storms. I'm not talking just about the weather. I'm talking about the personal storms that we have in our lives. If we are conscious that we allow the resistance of that energy moving through us in that storm, if we're conscious, we allow ourselves to breathe in the present moment and ground ourselves in the source of our being. A tree grounds itself in the source of its being, which is the earth. What is the source of our being? This is Q&A time. As religious science, what is the source of our being? How many of us wait to ground ourselves in the source of our being until there's a storm? You know what I'm talking about? When we have our personal storms in our lives, that's when all of a sudden we turn to God and ground ourselves and but what if we could ground ourselves in the source of our being before the storms hit? Allowing the roots of the core of our being to be so deeply grounded in the source of our being. Here it is. Ernest Holmes, in the science of mind, the source of our being would be referred to like this: one God, one mind, one power. One God, one mind, one power. That is being grounded in the source of our being. And in those moments where the storms show up in our lives, the storms could be a relationship storm, a crisis, or a health storm, or a crisis at work, or any place else in your life, if you can imagine the forces of life pushing against you in those moments where we're forced to find that sense of balance within ourselves, in those moments, that's when you go to a practitioner and that's what they're going to tell you, isn't it? One God, one mind, one power, and you're one with it right now. Ground yourself in that awareness. Holmes refers to it in the Science of Mind textbook as the three omnis. Here's the awareness of carrying this idea of how do you ground yourself in the source of your being when maybe the tendency is to go unconscious. Do you recall the three omnis? Omnipresence, omniscient, omnipotent. Omnipresent means God is everywhere, even before you get there. You can run, but you can't hide because it's there waiting for you. But how often do we forget that? How often do we forget that? Question and answer. A lot. Thank you. We do until the storm shows up, right? Omnipresence means God is all there is. You know, at the church I had in Simi Valley, I had a banner hanging on the wall. It was a big 6-foot banner. And it said just that, God is all there is. And every talk I did, I would resort back to first cause and say, there it is, right there. Whatever the issue is, whatever the storm is, whatever the problem is, there's the answer. Now ground yourself in the awareness of that truth. Because when you do, what you need will show up. Omnipresence, omniscient. What does omniscient mean? All-knowing. Do you believe that the infinite intelligence knows what you need before you know that you need it? 3 of us. Okay. Omniscient means, omnipresent means everywhere present, and omniscient means wherever it is, I am, wherever I am, it is, and wherever it is, omniscience is. In other words, the wisdom of infinite intelligence knows what to do and how to do it better than I do. I recall, months ago, I do this quite often for some reason. I was cutting a lime, I think, and I sliced and diced my thumb. Have you ever done that? Especially with lime juice. It's not good. It's not good at all. But that was, I stood and I watched because I play guitar, and I watched. I'm not going to be able to play guitar with this the way that cut is. And within 4 or 5 days, I watched the thing heal itself. I didn't do anything but wash it. And son of a gun, a week and a half later, the boo-boo was gone. It was perfect again. Now, I didn't tell my body how to do that. But the omniscience that lives within me, that lives within you, knows how to heal what is wrong with us or what appears to be wrong with us in those moments when we forget it or get swept into the drama. Omniscience, wherever you are in the storm that you're in, and I bet you everybody in here within the last 24 hours can identify with having some sort of a storm in your life. I have. Okay? If God is everywhere present, and God is all-knowing, that means that wherever I am, it is, and wherever it is, there's that within me operating that knows better than I do how to manifest whatever needs to be brought forward in my experience for balance, healing, and thriving. If I grow deep, I stand tall. The third omnipresence, omnipotence, and omnipotence, which means what? All-powerful. Not sort of powerful. All-powerful. Ernest Holmes had in his radio program in the 50s, he began to say, there's a power greater than you are in the universe, and you can use it. All-powerful. That means that wherever you go, the power that God is there before you get there, waiting for you to recognize it, to plant yourself in the ground of your being in it, and allow it to manifest in, through, and as you. Sound too easy? Those are the times when you go see a practitioner, right? When the storms are pushing against us and we go a little unconscious, that's what we go to practitioners for. because they're not caught up in our drama, our storm, so they're able to see the truth about us and call it forward. So omnipresence, wherever I am, God is. Omniscience, God's wisdom is my wisdom. Omnipotence, God's power is my power. What would it take for us to remember that every day? When we get out of bed in the morning, when we get in our car, when we go to the doctor's office, when we go to work, all the things that we do during the day, what if we could just have that little chant? God is, I am. One God, one mind, one power, omnipresence, omnipotence, omniscience, operating in me and through me. As all three flow in me right now, as they do you. So here's my invitation to you. Be more aware on a daily basis that that is the truth. That's what the practice of mindfulness is all about, is to bring you into the moment, to be aware of that, and to live in the presence of that. And when you do, you automatically ground yourself in the essence of your being, and your roots go deeper. I'll tell you what, if you want to see how it works, the three omnis are at work, just be still and observe nature. Just be still and observe nature, and you'll see those three omnis working all the time. Have you ever seen a rose in a garden grunt and force and push itself to unfold its blossom, its flower? Why? There's something within the rose that knows when it's appropriate for it to unfold. Yeah? For years, in the years that I was a pastor of a church in Simi Valley, I would do an annual mindfulness retreat. Did it a couple times a year, several years. There was one of our members owned a beautiful farm called the Tierra Rajada Farm. It was 200 acres of lush trees, groves, every kind of a tree you can imagine. Walnut trees, oak trees, orange trees, grapefruit trees, Christmas trees, eucalyptus trees. There's 200 acres of just magnificent trees. And we'd go out there a couple times a year for these mindfulness retreats, and we'd spend the whole day in that environment. And one of the things that I would ask and I talk about this idea that we're talking about right now, is that one of the greatest reminders of how to live in the presence of divinity and allow it to manifest in, through, and as us is to let nature be our teacher. Because you know what? Nature never goes unconscious. We do. We forget that we're grounded in the root of our. A tree never does. It just is. It accepts what is and lives in it, and the roots go deep, and it trusts and knows when it's supposed to shed its leaves, when it's supposed to flower, all the amazing things that nature does. One of the exercises I would do, I would talk about how trees, if we're teachable. Are you all teachable here? That if we would allow nature to teach us, we'd go, and I'd assign them this for a half-hour assignment. I'd say, go out into these 200 acres and find a tree that is calling you to be your teacher. And they would go, do a mindfulness walk, and find a tree that was speaking to them. And this was the practice that I gave them. I said, when you find the tree that is calling to you to be your teacher, just stand in front of it and let it teach you how to be a tree. And so the guidance was to go and stand in front of the tree, plant your feet so you feel firmly connected to the earth, then spread your arms like branches. And breathe. And be the tree. Stand with me. Come on, right now. Stand up. Okay, we're gonna plant our feet soundly on the planet. Okay. Stretch that spine. Open these arms. Now breathe. Remember, trees breathe. Breathe in and out, nice and deep and slowly. Now imagine the wind gently blowing against you. You're not going to stand there and push against the wind. Begin to sway. And feel yourself going with the flow of the wind, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And not pushing against the wind, letting it gently blow through you, allowing you to feel more stability in your feet that are grounded on the planet. Now breathe. Okay, now lower your arms. Take another nice deep breath. Do you feel grounded? If you don't, try it outside in front of a tree and watch what happens. Okay, please be seated. You see, that is a mindfulness practice that we can do every day if we are willing to allow ourselves to do the rituals that have meaning to us. Rituals are purposeless, meaningless, unless we find purpose in the ritual itself. And doing that, going out and standing with a tree, you'd be amazed at how that will shift your energy if you're willing to let the tree be your teacher. Because when you allow yourself to truly become acclimated to your environment, the most amazing thing happens. I'll share it. I wasn't going to share this, but I will. One of the assignments during the tree meditation out at the Terrahata farm was to go and find a tree. A group of ladies found the Christmas tree orchard, which was acres of beautiful Christmas trees. And they walk out into the middle of this orchard. And they told me afterward that this is what happened. They were out in the orchard, spread out among the trees doing this. And they were just into the flow of being the tree. And one of the farm hands walked into the grove. And how can I say this? He made a pit stop right in front of these ladies. And they were doing this. He left and went on his way. They came back at the end of the day and shared what had happened. That guy never saw them there. Why? Because they became so much at one with the environment, being a tree, that they became part of the grove. Now that may sound corny to you, it may sound a little crude that I would share that with you, but my point is this, is that when we're willing to establish ourselves in the environment to a point where we accept that we are one with it, nobody sees it differently for us or about us. That's about being natural in our environment, wherever we are. Do you feel at home wherever you are? Do you feel grounded in your being when you're out and about? Once you find yourself grounded, and I don't mean you necessarily have to stand like this to do that, but as you walk through your daily life, if you can feel that sense of being grounded in the essence of your being, you become one with the present moment in a way that people don't see you standing out as anything other than part of what is in the moment in all of its glory. Think about that. So the point is this. In the if you haven't got it by now, the message of what I wanted to share with you this morning is the necessity to continue growing. Grow deep, stand tall. In the Science of Mind textbook, Ernest Holmes talks about the universal imperative. Okay. He talks about the creative divine urge, which is in the textbook. And what he's saying is that in all living things, there's this life force pushing out. Look at your fingernails. Look at your hair. Look at any place, anything that's alive, you'll see there's this life force pushing out through it. If it could talk, it would say, I got to be more tomorrow than I was yesterday. It knows how to grow through us if we cooperate with it, right? Ernest Holmes also in the textbook gave the universal imperative. And here it is. I think I've mentioned this to you before when I was here. Grow or die. Living things that don't grow, the life force begins to wither and diminish, and that life force goes away when we stop growing. Now, I'm not talking just about physical growth. I'm talking about emotional growth, spiritual growth. What is it that causes you to deepen your sense of groundedness in truth? God is one God, one mind, one power. Is there a way that you can find in your daily practices to grow deeper into that truth, which will allow you to stand taller in the world when it comes to living that truth? So I guess the question is, what message are you sending the universe today? Think about that. Take a breath. Are you growing? Every living thing this applies to. Not just our bodies, body of our relationships, our careers. When we stop growing, the life force, we're sending a message to the universe, I'm not interested in being here anymore. So I guess the point that I want to make is there's no such thing as a perfect life without the storms. If there would, we wouldn't make it. We'd be gone. The storms give us the strength to persevere and to transcend the conditions. So the next time storms show up in your life, whether it's a personal storm, relationships, health, career, whatever it looks like, observe and this is the homework assignment this week. Observe yourself this week, and when the personal storms arise in your life, irrespective of where it is, and they will, notice that if you're resisting the flow of what is or not. If you're resisting it, you're doing this. And if you're going with it, okay, what is. Man may not like it, but I'm going to flow with it. Snap. Move. Does that make sense to you? So plant yourself in the ground of your being. Allow the taproot of yourself to grow deeper and deeper on a daily basis. And as you stand in the truth of that awareness, God is, I am. One God, one mind, one power. Irrespective of what the storm is, bring it on. I know who I am, where I am, why I am, right here, right now. God is, I am. And I stand in that truth, and I grow deeper into it every day. Take a breath. And so it is.